Hello folks, Scott with Dallas Paint Correction and Auto Detailing here in Dallas, Texas. I got a 2017, I think, Chevy Silverado here that I got to do. It's a maintenance detail of mine. I have in front of me McGuires Ultimate Paste Wax. A lot of you guys know this, right? Right on the front of the bottle or the jar it says pure synthetic polymer, our most advanced hydrophobic wax. Well, that's pretty cool. That's the first claim it makes right on the thing. It's talking about being hydrophobic. Nothing on the jar says anything about UV protection, but the box does. The box that came in said maximum UV protection, but it didn't tell me what maximum meant. So McGuires, I don't really know what that means. Is it maximum because that's the maximum you can put in this jar? Is it the maximum versus other waxes? Is it the most maximum I can buy anywhere? Is that, well, it's just marketing, so I'll leave it alone. I also have in front of me McGuires Ultimate Fast Finish. People ask me all the time, or they said to me online on the YouTube channel that I'm on, and said, Scott, you're a hack. First, you're cleaning a car with purple powered degreaser. That's not true, folks. What I'm using is purple power vehicle and boat wash that has a pH rating of 10, and the surfactants within it are completely safe for the clear coat. It's just an actual cleaner for the car. It's not pH neutral. So if you think I've been using purple powered degreaser on my paint, I'm sorry, I haven't. I would never recommend that, by the way, and turn that into a car soap, but I wanted to just clarify that for you. Some people said to me, Scott, you're a hack. How do you put this on your customers' cars, even if you see them once a month? This is just a spray wax. That's not true. This is a true paint sealant. It has no fillers, no abrasives, no chemical cleaners or anything like that. It is a true paint sealant, much like OptiSeal. In fact, McGuire says this will last longer than their Ultimate Paste Wax. They're now saying this is their longest lasting wax that they have. Cool, thanks, I love it because it's so easy to apply and so fast. I love it. So here we go. I want to talk about something. How long do these things really last? What's very interesting is nowhere on the box or on the jar with McGuire's Ultimate Paste Wax does it say how long it lasts. A lot of wax companies are starting to do that. They're not even playing that game anymore with giving you a time frame. But what's very interesting about McGuire's Ultimate Fast Finish is they do actually say something on the box it comes in. On the box, right on the front of the box, you will notice it will say it will last for 100 wash cycles, and right above it, it will say for 1 year. Okay, McGuires, okay, 3M, whoever you are now, what is it? Will this last 100 washes or 1 year? I think 100 washes, first of all, it's very important that McGuires would mention that, and I'll get to it in a minute, but 100 washes doesn't make sense because that would be saying I put it on the car now, and if I wash my car once a month, I can go 100 months. That's crazy, wild, nuts, silly. Nobody's ever going to believe that. But then they said 1 year. Okay, cool, but I don't know why you mentioned the wash cycle, but I know why they mentioned it, and I'm going to tell you about it. Why do they mention the wash cycle? Well, let's say I put McGuire's Ultimate Fast Finish on this paint a week ago, and now I got to wash this car. I'm going to take my pH neutral soap, and let's pretend this is my favorite little wash mitt. I'm going to dunk it into the panel. They say it lasts 100 wash cycles. When I put my mitt onto the panel and I gently go across the surface with my pH neutral soap, and I do this because, one, I don't want to apply too much pressure so I don't scratch the panel. I'm using a pH watch that's only going after loose dust and dirt, so I don't really have to apply much pressure anyway. It's not really cleaning the paint, it's just removing what's on the surface. But they say wash cycle because if you washed your car that way 100 times, you will then remove this wax. Let me ask you guys a question. If 100 wash cycles can remove this wax, what is actually removing the wax? Do you think it's the pH neutral soap? Do you think it's the water? That has something to do with it, but it's not the biggest factor in all of this. What's actually removing the wax is the friction of the wash mitt going across the paint. So if I put Ultimate Fast Finish right here on this panel and I dunk this in pH soap, my favorite wash mitt, and went over it 100 times, I am most likely going to pull the wax right off the paint. First of all, nobody's going to sit there and go 100 times in one spot, right? But I think you get my point. So friction is a form of erosion. That's what removes waxes. Now we got to ask a really important question. If I put the wax on today, the Ultimate Fast Finish, I put it on today and I use this car as my daily driver. I got to drive to work 30 miles every day one way, so it's 60 miles, right? and I have to take the highway. The speed limits in Texas are 75 miles an hour, so I do 80. Don't turn me into the police, folks. So I'm doing 80 miles an hour on the highway, and I'm driving into a 10-mile-an-hour headwind. How much friction do you think is on this panel when I'm driving that way? On the front of the car, on the hood. How much friction is on the panel of the paint at 75, 80 miles an hour, driving into 10-mile-an-hour headwinds? It's a lot. It's a lot of friction. It's a lot of pressure on that panel. Now let's say at 75, 80 miles an hour with a 10-mile-an-hour headwind, I come across a little rainstorm, but not enough to make me slow down, but enough to kind of splash traffic film onto my car, and those little water droplets from the clouds are hitting this car like little BBs. Bing, bing, and I'm still driving at 75 miles an hour, driving into a headwind. How long do you think the wind's going to last now from that friction and form of erosion? I think you get my point, folks. It's so hard to actually say how long these things will last from a polymer or whatever fancy stuff they're putting in this to actually give us maximum UV protection. If you're looking for maximum UV protection, I don't think this is where you want to go. If you do want to use this for maximum UV protection, you're probably going to have to apply it quite a bit, several times a month to get its true benefits, because there's too much subjected to the car. Other forms of friction, erosion, all sorts of stuff is going on. It's just, I think you get my point. The next thing I want to talk about is traffic film. Because we use pH neutral soaps, and I kind of been talking about this the last couple of days, we know that a pH neutral soap in water and with my favorite wash mitt, applying very little pressure, can't remove the traffic film. I can remove the dust that's stuck to it, and the panel will look clean, great. And then I go ahead and dry it and I apply, maybe I top it off with another wax, fine. Where does that traffic film go? Well, I had a scenario not too long ago, it was about 9 months ago, but I've seen this several times in my career, and it's what got me thinking about all of this as we move along on my channel. I had a scenario where a customer called me and owned a blue Ford F-150. He said, Scott, I've only owned it for 4 years. It's only 4 years old. He says, I wax it 3 times a year, and I wash it with a pH neutral soap. Scott, it's my baby. I take care of it. I noticed the last time I went to wash it, the wax was already starting to degrade on the panels, so I washed the car completely, and I realized the wax wasn't really there anymore. It was time to re-wax. But he said when it dried, he looked at the car and he saw the blue paint was hazy. It was slightly cloudy. It didn't look brilliant to him like the day he bought it new. And he started to ask himself, boy, was it the wax that was throwing him off? He's so used to looking at a shiny, glossy car. He said, no, there's something wrong with this paint. I want to call Scott. So he called me in. I asked him those questions. How do you maintain the car? Scott, oh my God, I wax it 3 times a year. I use pH neutral soap. I'm such a baby with this thing. It's my favorite truck. I always wanted a Ford F-150. I got it. It's my favorite color. How in the world did the paint get oxidized? Do the waxes really help with UV protection? I said, well, no, but don't even worry about that, because that's not really your problem here in the moment. And he says, well, what do you think? What I ended up doing, folks, is I washed his car twice. I went around the car twice with a, you guys might call it an aggressive soap, but it was not pH neutral. I wanted to pull any road grime, anything that could possibly be on that paint. And then I clay barred the car. And when I noticed when I was claying, I was still pulling traffic film off the car, even cleaning it twice with a rather aggressive soap. And then what I did after that is I used my Duplicolor paint prep. At that point, 3 cleaning processes with the clear coat. I felt very comfortable going in and starting doing paint correction. I want to show you something. Because the oxidation on the panel, or what he thought was oxidation, was so light, yes, I could tell it with my critical eye, it wasn't as brilliant blue as it should be. So I knew I was going to have to go in with a polishing pad, and I used like an all-in-one polish that had the ability to remove some of the clear coat. I didn't want to remove it all because what looked like oxidation was just on the surface of the paint. I want to show you this pad. You see this pad right here? I'll turn it sideways. This is a Lake Country Force pad. It's a white polishing pad. It's got a light cut to it, and I used it with probably one of the most aggressive all-in-ones that are on the market. I'll get into it another time. I used it. I applied it to the pad. I applied it to the panel, the driver's door. I did very slow arm speeds, and I started to notice when I would flip my pad over, I said, boy, I got to clean this pad before I go to the next 2x2 area. So I'm brushing it with a brush, right? I don't want to go to the next 2x2 area. I want to get rid of the spent compound, and I want to get rid of the clear coat that I'm pulling off the car, which was very little, but I was starting to see brilliance come back, so I knew I didn't have to go very far, but I was removing clear coat. I did the other half of the door. I stopped and I looked at my pad. Look at my pad. Look at how filthy it is. This is filth. The spent compound, the compound was a different color. Clear coat's clear. We can't see it when we pull it off the paint, but it's on there. You got to get it off the pad. But look at how dirty that pad is. It's filthy. You know what that is, folks? It's traffic film. What are you talking about, Scott? I thought you washed the car twice. I thought you clayed it. I thought you used paint prep. Where were you getting traffic film from? Folks, Optimum Polymer Technologies will tell you they have a spray wax that can migrate into the spray wax. That's pretty cool. Thanks, Dr. David Gadusi. What they don't tell you is that when you're using pH neutral soaps over and over and over again, and you never remove the traffic film from the car, but maybe you do it once a year. Maybe you're going to strip your car once a year and do a clay, but you've lost the game. Some of you may, depending on how much traffic film gets on your car. That's another scenario, but some of you are opening up the door to a critical problem. The traffic film can migrate into the clear coat, and as I was removing clear coat, I was pulling that traffic film up onto my pad. Folks, do you want to know who I see that with more often than not? Car enthusiasts that are taking care of their own cars, listening to the industry saying you got to wax 3 times a year, which the man was doing. He was washing with a pH neutral soap. No, he didn't clay. He didn't even know what a clay bar is, but that's okay. Most people don't in the real world. But he had that traffic film migrating into the clear coat, and I got one panel out of it, and I had to stop with this pad. It was so filthy, it was so dirty. And what he thought was oxidation was simply traffic film that migrated into his clear coat and began to make the clear coat look hazy and cloudy. You know who I don't see it with? I never ever see it with people who wash their cars at a car wash, but I will see those people for paint correction because their paint is scratched to living hell because the brushes are hitting it all the time. But those high detergent soaps will remove the traffic film every time off the paint. But of course, the car wash will scratch the paint. That's typically who we're using, or those are using us to do paint correction. Those are probably some of our biggest clients. And I will never see this, even though I will clean the car with an aggressive soap, clay it, and then paint prep it. I will never get this with somebody who used a car wash. Why? Because they weren't using pH neutral soaps. Love you so much. Talk to you soon.